my audience. Death, love, religion, victory, guidance, earthquakes, and fire. What do all of these words have in common? These words describe the seven wonders of the ancient world and why they were built and why the majority of them are no longer standing. I've heard about the seven wonders of the ancient world, but never really knew what they were. So I decided to do some research to figure out the what, why, when, and where, and myths that may be attached to these places. Now that I've done my research, I would like to share my newfound knowledge with you. First, I want to start by explaining why these places are considered wonders and others are not. The reason why these seven places are considered wonders and others are not is actually really simple. In the book Ancient Wonders, it states the earliest thing that comes close to being a list of the seven wonders is a short poem attributed to the Antipater of Sidon, a writer of epigrams who flourished around 120 BC. There you have it. The list of the seven wonders of the ancient world was made because a writer wrote a poem about places that he had visited. It really is just that simple. If he'd have visited other places, there's no telling what would be on the list. But today, I want to just talk about those seven places. And the first one I would like to talk about is the only one still standing, and that is the Pyramid at Giza, Egypt. Not only is it the last remaining one still standing, it is also the oldest of the wonders, being built in 2560 BC, which makes it over 4,500 years old. Not only is it the only one still standing and the oldest, but it was also the tallest structure for over 4,000 years. This giant structure, when first constructed, stood at over 481 feet tall and covered an area of 13 acres. To give you an idea of how big a piece of land 13 acres is, the house that we're standing in is 1,200 square feet. It would take 472 of these houses to equal the same amount of land. The reason why the pyramid was built was for it to be the tomb of the pharaoh Khufu. In the article, The Great Pyramid of Giza, the last remaining wonder of the ancient world, it states that there is evidence that it suggests it took 20,000 workers 20 years to build it. Now some say because of its massive size and precision that the people of that time could not build such a structure. And some suggest that maybe aliens were involved. But it states in the article, aliens or Egyptians who really built the pyramids, evidence for their human construction has been found in the remains of the quarries, roads, tools, records of the workers, and the towns in which they lived. Now, I would like to move on to another wonder called the Colossus of Rhodes. Believe it or not, we are all aware of what a colossus is, because our country has our very own, and we call her the Statue of Liberty. Now, the Colossus of Rhodes, when built, was 110 feet tall, and it was a statue of the patron god Helios. It stood on a pedestal at the entry to their harbor and was built to celebrate the victory and freedom from a man named Demetrius. In an article by Lee Christic, I found out in 305 BC, Demetrius attacked Rhodes, bringing over 40,000 soldiers, which was more than the population of Rhodes itself. But because Rhodes was protected by a strong and tall wall, and they received help from Egypt, Demetrius fled, leaving his war machines and siege towers behind. In 292 BC, the Rhodians melted down the leftover war machines for the bronze to use for the exterior of the statue, and they used the left-behind siege towers for the scaffolding to build it. Now, it only stood for 56 years because it was destroyed by earthquake. Now, the only myth that I could come up with for the Colossus of Rhodes was his pose, and it was because of an engraving done in the 16th century that made people believe that he stood astride the harbor and the ships that came and went passed beneath the statue. But that is incorrect. I found in the Columbia Electronic Encyclopedia that in reality it stood on a promontory overlooking the harbor, and the representational type is well known for images found on coins of the same period. Now that I've introduced two wonders, one built for death and one built for victory, I would like to introduce two that were built for love. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon were built by the king Nebuchadnezzar II around 605 BC for his wife, Amadis of Media, who was homesick and missed the mountains in the greenery of her home. believed to be about 400 feet wide and 400 feet long and almost 80 feet tall. The only problem with this is that with the research of thousands of tablets found in that time, there's no mention of the gardens. I found in the magazine Archaeology that Stephanie Dalley of Oxford University has concluded, after many years of study, that the famed Hanging Garden has never been found in Babylon because it was actually constructed by the Assyrian king Sennacherib in Nineveh. But archaeologists have found evidence that could put the Hanging Gardens in both places, so perhaps we may never know. The next wonder that was built due to love is the Mausoleum of Halicarnassus. Built for Mausolus in 351 BC, he was the second ruler of Caria, and it was built by his wife Artemisia II. Now the name Mausolus is where we get our word mausoleum. The mausoleum stood atop a hill outside of the city and was built in 3 sections. The first section was a stone platform. The second section was 36 columns. In between each column was a statue, and behind those columns was a block wall to support the roof. The roof was a pyramid with 24 levels. On top of that was a sculpture of Mausolus and Artemisia astride a 4-horse chariot. Unfortunately, this wonder was also destroyed by earthquake in the 13th century. Now I would like to introduce 2 wonders that were built for gods: the statue of Zeus at Olympia, Greece, and the temple of Artemis at Ephesus. Both were built around the 5th century BC. In Olympia, Greece was where the Olympic Games were created. When the games became more popular, the people decided to pay homage to the gods by building the statue of Zeus. Unfortunately, it was also destroyed by an earthquake. Now, the other wonder built for the gods is called the Temple of Artemis. It was built to honor Artemis, which was one of 3 maiden goddesses of Olympus. But unfortunately, a man named Herostratus burned the temple down to achieve fame by being associated with the destruction of something so beautiful. The next and the final wonder was built for guidance, and it is the Lighthouse of Alexandria, which was built on the island of Pharos and stood about 440 feet tall. This lighthouse was commissioned by Ptolemy and was completed around 280 BC. It was used to guide sailors to port. At the time it was built, it was the 3rd tallest structure in the world, only behind the pyramids. The light in the lighthouse was a mirror that would mirror the sun by day and would mirror fire by night, and the light could be seen 35 miles out. Unfortunately, this one was also destroyed by earthquakes. Now I hope that I have shed a little light on the what, why, when, where, and some of the myths with each of these places called the 7 wonders of the ancient world for you. I will end with the poem that created the list. I have gazed upon the walls of impregnable Babylon, along which chariots may race, and on the Zeus by the banks of the Alpheus. I have seen the Hanging Gardens and the Colossus of Helios, the great man-made mountains of the lofty pyramids, and the gigantic tomb of Mausolus. But when I saw the sacred house of Artemis that towers to the clouds, the others were placed in the shade, for the sun himself has never looked upon its equal outside Olympus. My notes.
Very good, son.